I was stoked to talk to you about it because I have like an unhealthy fascination with raccoons. I Dude, they're like little forest wizards. Like I'm pretty sure they practice forest magic.
Buzz babies.
All right, buzz babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. I guess you could say comic book royalty. I'm going to say comic book royalty. I have an amazing artist on the show tonight, and you all know I get a little nervous when I talk about art. So this is going to be a very interesting interview. I'm just joking. I'm so excited, folks. He has done Powers with Bendis. He's done some Hellboy. He's done BPRD. He's done some Daredevil. He's done a whole bunch of cool stuff. You might have read Blue Book with James Tynion, and he's also doing the coolest raccoon comic around. Sorry, Marvel, but William is awesome. Let's bring him out. I got Michael Oeming in the house. Oh my goodness, sir. How are you this evening?
Wow, that was fantastic. I need you to introduce me everywhere I go. You could be my S1W.
I was a ringside boxing announcer in a past life, I think, or so. Or the mixed martial arts are the ones that they get kind of lively. My buddies all into that, so I watch the fights sometimes. But yeah, I'm already rambling. This is great. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, sir. I was one of those ignorant people where, I didn't know a lot about Powers till it like stumbled out on the PlayStation Network of all places, right?
Wow.
What? Yeah, I somehow, man, I know you're like, this is the comics press I'm talking to. No,
No, I'm saying wow because it's hard to find on like that was our challenge. One of the challenges at the time was like we couldn't tell people how to find it on the PlayStation.
Oh, really?
It was the whole thing. So it's ironic that that's where you found it. But I'm glad you're the guy. You're the one who watched it. I like that.
Well, and I also loved it. But as a lot of my buddies like on PlayStation, like we were all kind of excited about it because it was like there are a lot of PlayStation subscribers, right? Because you have to subscribe to play online, and like Call of Duty, all that stuff, right? But we all were like, why isn't this coming out on a network or on Netflix or on a streaming platform? It was odd. But so as a PlayStation user, we were like, awesome. And then, me too, being like a comic book nerd and stuff, I was like, oh, and then I was like, whoa, Bendis. And then I was like, oh my, and so it's like, I was like, how have I never heard of this? But yeah, it was awesome. I had fun with it. You know, like I'm sure a lot of people, was it perfect? No, but it was fun to watch. Reading the comics, whole different experience, right? But that got me there, right? That got me
Yeah,
to
it's awesome.
your book. So in a sense, it was a major success.
I think it's really interesting. Like we talk a lot about success in comics and really wanting people to sort of frame success in their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is timing. Timing is everything. Like one of the reasons Powers became a big hit and lasted as long as it is because of when it came out. So when people put out a book or they're trying to put out a comic or something like that, and it just doesn't get any traction, it often doesn't have to do with the quality of the book or you as a creator, right? There's a lot of other factors. There's timing and stuff. The television show is the opposite side of the book of the sort of bookmark of that for us. Like Powers came out at a time when it needed that message. We came out with the PlayStation stuff super early on in the streaming period. Like they didn't know quite where it fit, where it fit, and this was doing this kind of like big budget stuff through a gaming network and stuff. And even though Sony was behind it, it was the timing. It was very early in all the streaming stuff, and nobody quite knew what to do or quite knew how to market it or so I like to use that as an example of how much timing is important for stuff, and we were way too early to kind of figure out what to do or tell people how to watch it or any of this kind of stuff, but we're still really, really happy and proud of it. I love following the cast, some of which are on Friends shows. Susan Hayward, who played Dina, is on The Boys.
Yeah.
Logan Browning is on Ed Brubaker's Criminal, which is filming here in Portland.
Ooh, I think everybody.
Yeah, and there's a couple others. Like, it's great to watch. It's great to see them to grow and stuff, and it's a great experience. So yeah, very happy with it, and glad we picked up new fans like you. I love hearing that.
Yeah, it's in that sense it was cool, and it was I wish especially in comics, I think it would be beneficial to try new things like that. You know, similar to someone posted online the other day, like they went whatever the last big Marvel movie was, I think, but or maybe it was the last maybe it was the last Aquaman movie. I don't remember. But when they left the theater, they had like comic book displays and they were selling like
That's so
graphic
smart.
novels, like right when you walk out, and it's like, yeah, okay, now I know like dumping millions of dollars into like a big budget series production, releasing it in an experimental way. Not everybody can do that, right? But like thinking outside of the box, taking risks, trying stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's important for a medium. I look at you as an artist. Like I just going through your new stuff. Like you're Michael, you're trying some new weird shit, and I'm all about it. You
Yeah.
know, you when you did Blue Book, and I was reading your one of your afterword, I think, of volume 1, and you were
Mm.
talking about the challenge of like, because like the format of it, and no one ever throw, I think you said that you were like, no one ever throws a punch, like I never drew,
Yeah.
you know, and it was just like it's and it was like it's like a documentary kind of
Yeah.
but sequential narrative, right? And it was, I noticed this, and I hope other readers did too, Michael. There was so much pressure on every single panel for you,
Mm.
right? Like
Yeah.
you had to do so much in like one panel, like usually with a lot of
The word balloons and captions and stuff.
yeah, the
Yeah.
captions, there's there were you had to deal with like a lot of captions, a lot of facts. I loved the facts, right? I was all
Yeah.
about like the aliens, the history of it all, the
Yeah.
culture. But you, what was that like getting these scripts? You're into it, right? You're into the
Yeah.
project, you're into the topic, but you're like, wow, I have to bring this to life, right?
Oh yeah, that was the best part. I mean, the most exciting part was knowing the format, like that. So I wanted to do more sort of pseudo journalistic documentary style comics. So this was something that I had already seen in my head. So when James said that he wanted to do Blue Book and to do it in this way, and to not sort of sensationalize the stories and kind of make up stuff, and like let's just be with characters as they're experiencing stuff. That was the main thing that I was looking for. My favorite stuff is sort of like body language, facial expressions, using lighting and composition to express a scene, to express a mood.
Mm.
You know, like the more that you can, it's the whole show don't tell thing. So the more that you can show to a reader what is happening, as opposed to telling them in the words. And James is very good at like not repeating the visuals that are on the page. You know, he easily could have like sort of written a lot to sort of show off his writing skills, but he like Brian Bendis, he knows when to pull back and let, like, if the art's already telling the story, to just let that mood hit. You know, like
Okay.
there's a shot of like when Barney Hill first sees an alien through this UFO that he's seeing or thinks he's seeing, and I use a stark red color. Like there wasn't any need for James to write in the, you know, some line like the fear, you know, pushed through his veins, like his heart pumping, blah blah blah, right? And he just let it speak for itself, and that was something I was really looking forward to. Also, when James gave me scripts, they're almost Marvel style scripts. They're very loose,
Okay.
um, and that, I think, again, that allows me to do my thing as a storyteller. And because he's such a great storyteller, he knows how to, like, yes, end it, you know, like how do I make this better without stepping on it or anything. And it comes together well because both Tinian and Bendis are very much about not their ego, but what is best for the story. And that's what I work best with, is when, like, let's do what we can to tell the story as best as we can. And, you know, it's not about the sort of, you know, glory of it, you know. So I mean, that's why I think it works so well, and why I was really excited about telling the story in that way without having a lot of like crazy action going on. Just having to tell the story, like, you know, if somebody's having a conversation in the kitchen for 2 pages, like, how do I engage the reader in a way that makes that interesting? So having a lot of fun with it. And we're working on the, you know, 1947 just came out, which is the
Mhm.
second volume, and we're at work on the third volume right now.
Awesome. I was hoping you were gonna keep it going because, like, yeah, Ros, like touching Roswell, and then, and of course, you know, this narrative, right? This is this historical narrative part of our, it's indebted in our culture.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know they're real now. Like the government said it on TV. Like they
Yeah.
and no one cared. The government was like, all right,
Yeah.
aliens are real. We've been watching UFOs for a long time, and everybody was like, okay, cool, world sucks, don't care. And I was like, whoa, hold on. But like, what did you think about that? Like, because this is you're doing this book, and this is a pretty big, both you and James, you're at big moments in your career. The whole spawning of this book was a big deal, right? Because it was off the
Yeah.
Substack grants, right? Everybody was
Yeah.
whispering about it. It was interesting. No one knew what it was going to be, and all
Yeah.
we knew was James and you were going to do this book about aliens. It's like, whoa! And everybody was talking about it, But yeah, you're doing this book. All this stuff's going around, and then one day on the news, they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're real. Like, what? And you're drawn, and you're like,
The
huh,
fascinating thing about that, and I'm so grateful to be drawing Blue Book during this time period because, yeah, I've always been interested in the phenomenon, as they say, right? I don't know where my beliefs specifically stand. It's just hard to tell, I mean,
mm-hmm.
I'm definitely open to stuff. I'm much more interested in just the scene than the specifics of it. Like I remember once somebody actually asking me if I believed aliens were visiting, and I was like, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
I certainly don't discount it in any way, and I want it to be true. I want to believe poster kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what's really really fascinating is in doing Blue Book, especially the 1947 stuff, you get to see how history is repeating itself. And the only thing that I know for sure about the UFO thing is that UFO lore is definitely used by the government for some version of subterfuge. And I don't think it's X-Files, Smoking Man in the back room kind of stuff. I think it has a lot to do more with the departmentalization of information, egos, money, and budgets.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems like a very useful tool to get things going behind the scenes and to maintain sources of power and stovepipe information. So that's for sure is happening. And we see it happening again because in 1947, shortly after Blue Book was formed, you see the same patterns happening. You have stuff like the Twining memo, which was this admiral or whatever who had written this paper saying, and this was leaked out, that UFO, and I think it was leaked on purpose, that UFOs were a real thing. They don't know what they are. And I believe he said they show some sort of substantial threat to our security or something, but then denies it later. And early on, at very first, the famous Roswell thing was the local Air Force base was saying we have a flying saucer, and then they immediately walk it back, right? So it seems like there's, and we're seeing that now. So like in 2017, they were basically saying crazy stuff like, here are all these videos that we have. These are non-human made, or they're technologies that aren't ours. We don't think it's theirs. We don't know what it is. They, and there are some circles are even using terms like non-human intelligence and stuff. And then they'll roll it back, So then again, recently, I forget what it was, but they were saying stuff about the videos that oh, this was actually a bird or some stuff. And then you had these other things like the Schumer Amendment. Chuck Schumer was putting forward this thing that had to do with helping disclosure happen. And then that seemed so exciting at the time. And there were both sides of the aisle were working together on this. And then suddenly it got all rolled back and stuff. So there's this pattern that happens. And you just have to look at recent history, which is really funny because the UFO community doesn't seem to do this very often. You have a few guys like Richard Dolan is one of the researchers out there, and he often will point out what was going on back then and how it reflects to what's happening now. Ross Coulthard is one of these guys. He's these reporters who's kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff, but he also points this out. So there's this constant weird pattern where the government will get closer to some form of disclosure, and then they'll walk it back a couple steps forward, and then they walk it back. So again, I whatever is going on, I think for sure it's mostly being used for some form of red tape, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we also know for a fact, because there are ex-CIA people with FOI paperwork to prove that they were purposefully embedded into the UFO community at like conventions and talks and stuff. and that these CIA guys were giving false information to people about government revelations about UFOs and stuff.
Whoa.
There's a movie or documentary called Mirage Men that covers a lot of this. Richard Doty was one of the CIA guys who will still talk about it, and it's funny because then Doty is still out there now talking about disclosure stuff when we know he's specifically a disclosure agent, and he's so good at it. He talks about how that was his job then, but now this is the real stuff, right? And yet here we are, like we're like Charlie Brown with the football, like just eating it all up again, not asking questions. I don't know that there are answers to these questions, to be fair. Like unless well, you could say, unless aliens land on the White House lawn, but that kind of already happened. There was, I forget the year, we cover it in the 1947 book. There was a flyover over the White House with a huge amount, like I forget, 5 or 6 saucers or something like that. And, they sent out military planes to chase it and all this stuff. And there's photos, and it was on the newspapers. And again, nobody cared. It was kind of like the 2017 happening back then. So like all this stuff is fascinating. It is like a mirrored room full of quicksand, I think, as this reporter Linda Moulton Howe talks about. Like it's just all illusions, and it's all being used for other reasons and stuff. And maybe there's aliens involved as well. I don't know.
It does feel like a good way to get like a budget increase or like a project
Absolutely.
signed off or something.
To your point, like immediately after those videos came out, what happened? We shoot down a Chinese spy balloon, and now they're trying to say those were tied into the Chinese spy balloon stuff. With the one thing that both of like a UFO kind of thing and spy balloons have in common: national defense, budgets, money.
Yeah.
Who gets to control it? Who gets grants? It's always a follow the money situation, no matter what. And that's not conspiratorial. That's not supposition. That's just look at the history. You know it's all true.
But there's also a lot of shady stuff. Like I'm saying this jokingly, but it's kind of true. Like around balloons, because like that for like it's like anytime they want to like cover something up, it's always a balloon. Like it was like
always a balloon.
What's always like how gullible do they think? Like, and I guess we are pretty gullible, right? Because they can keep using the same damn excuses. Right? There's a balloon, balloons. It's 2024, Mike. Balloons are crazy these days. Like,
and it's strange that they do that when a drone technology would be so much easier to sort of pin some of this stuff on, right? Yeah. And to raise the fear levels even more, to say like, we don't know what this drone technology is, right? It's just not ours. Yeah. Like you could really do that to scare people up. But I think along with these sort of cover-ups that involve money and stuff, there's also a lot of laziness, because when you look at these stories, as I say, that they're repeating because they're old stories that keep working. So they just keep going back to the well and using these same things instead of coming up with one thing new. Like, hey, maybe they've discovered a way to make like a version of hard light, that so these objects just look like they're there, but they're not really there, or something. Like, instead of thinking of anything, inventive like that, it's like, no, it's balloons again. So that's the good side, is like there's a lot of conspiracies I think are just, it's the mundanity of ineptitude,
Aliens might as well be real because we're so bored. It seems like we need something.
Yeah, well, so much of this, the other part of this, so much of a lot of these phenomena is psychological, and I don't mean people are hallucinating stuff, but like I know I need the universe to be a bigger, more interesting, mythical place than it is, because if it's not, that's hard. It's hard to go like, oh, we're just born, we either have good lives or bad lives, and we're born in the right place and time, or not born in the right place or time, and then you die and then there's nothing, right? Yeah. So we all want this sort of extra thing of some kind, of some sort, and I think that can blind our judgment to sort of what might be going on or not going on. And to be fair, that's a very human thing, and it's hard to separate, right? Like,
wow. That's so, I really dig your, like, you have this like keen insight into like the quirks of humanness, but I guess it makes sense because you kind of have to, because I want one more thing about Blue Book, and then I'll move on. But like I was so impressed that the initial story, which I guess is this like the first like main real like UFO, I was like really disappointed in like my alien nerdy self that like so much stuff in your book I had no idea about. But like the couple leaving the diner and the and And that's like this story. Like, everybody knows this story. And I was like, well, I didn't,
Yeah.
but there's that part where when they start doing like the hypnosis and they're bringing these new memories up, but there's this distrust that James put in the narrative, in the words. I read them, but like, dude, Michael, like I could see it in their eyes. I could see it in the tightness in their cheeks and lips and stuff, like
Uh,
there was a tension in that house where there used to not be a tension, right? Like that
yeah.
in a sense was a alien invader, you could call it, right? And it was
Yeah.
so cool to see how you pulled that off,
Oh,
dude.
thank you so much. And these were things I was consciously going for, and part of it was like my generation. So I'm like early 50, 51. So these characters were about my parents' age. They were a little bit older, I think. So I could really relate to them, and sort of start to understand how they take it. When you read their stories, Barney had a hard life. This was a interracial couple in the 50s who were like everywhere they go, they kind of had to be a little careful. Plus, I think it was Betty or Barney, both of them were working with like social issues, and they're successful, so they're just living, breathing targets
Mm-hmm.
for all kinds of stuff. Which adds a lot of reasoning to they can't really be. It would be weird for them to be lying about this stuff.
Yeah, they wouldn't
But
want
there
the
was a
attention. They don't want
yeah,
more people to like, yeah, because
yeah. There's a huge
they
amount of
want that
stress.
privacy.
Yeah, Barney's job as a postman was incredibly stressful. I forget the details, but he had these crazy rides. He had a son who lived long distance, so like he was just under this tons of pressure, and I think he just didn't want to deal with it. Whereas Betty was obsessed with everything that happened, so
Mhm.
that became sort of her whole life was wrapped around this. So I think they loved each other very much, but I think it was a, a source of tension. Um, but also something that bonded them. I mean, Barney wasn't in denial of any sort. If you're really interested, like there's a bunch of documentaries about it, including the tapes when they were hypnotized, and they're terrifying. Like Barney is just
No.
flipping out. Like he's like in a horror movie. It's terrible.
Oh my
So like
God.
whatever was going on there, something was going on, you know. And
That's
I'm just glad I
exciting.
was able to bring out the characters' feelings and stuff, and they loved each other very much, and I hope I was able to really portray that as well.
Yeah, that's why that distrust and tension between them was so terrifying, because you knew. Yeah, so it was really cool.
No, thanks.
So I want him, and he's like a good buddy. He told me, I told him, Mike, I was real excited when I booked you. And I was like, dude, I'm talking to Michael next week. And he was like, man, I just wasn't that into Blue Book. And he was like, I thought it, and I was like, and I started reading it, and I was like, do you not like aliens? And he was like, I knew you'd like it. And I was like, it's good. It's not just, and I'm not, obviously not the only one. Like
It's
Dark
very
Horse,
subtle. Like
yeah.
we like I said, we're not going for sort of the big moments kind of stuff, you know. It's very subtle. Also, if you like that book, there's another comic out there called the Estimation of the Situation that handles things similarly, in a completely different way. It's also a great book. So if you're into Blue Book, you should check that one out too. Because
Cool.
most comics, when they handle this stuff, yeah, they want to go big with it, you know, even if they're trying to be truthful. And I think the subject is big enough as it is to not have to sort of exaggerate anything. Like it's
Yeah.
so weird.
Dude, that's exciting. And Michael, it's so I do this. I interview y'all so much, and I do it all the time. Very rarely does like do any of you all like, oh, Blake, read this. Like, it's just like,
Yeah,
because we talk. It would be weird. I guess it wouldn't be that weird if I'm like liking your books. You're like, oh, we haven't read that, but it's a conversation about like your books and stuff. So very rarely is someone like, oh, so yeah, I will totally check that out. And I
yeah, check it out.
have to see the creepy hypnosis. I love that stuff, dude.
It'll
Because
give you nightmares, man.
good. I love that. I love night. I'm weird. I love horror. I tell people all the time, like the best scares, come from, like it's not the monster movies, right? It's the people.
Yeah,
People are the best monsters, and that's not that's like the monsters within, right? The memories. Oh,
yeah.
that's crazy. So cool. Okay. Segueing into all your other amazing work, you have a lot. That was the worst segue ever, but I'll
Oh, it's
sit
all
here and
good.
talk aliens with you all night, Michael. God, but you got a very cool Kickstarter up right now, and folks, if you're listening, really, there's 14 days left. Michael's not even at $20,000 yet. We need to get him at least 25. I'm just kidding. Congratulations. Your campaign's killing it. You got 2 weeks left. It's really exciting. We're talking about the After Realm Volume 1. So you're getting like all this. There's 5 total, like 5 like big issues. Like this is a big trade. You get the hardcover, you get a slip case, lots of cool stuff, and you've added almost like a whole bonus issue to it now, right?
Of all new material that even backers for previous issues haven't seen.
That is rad, dude. That's how you do it. That's how you come to Kickstarter and play. Like that's the way you should do it. You know, it's so many. I mean, so many people, especially when you have a name like yours, right? Like if you're like, oh, like maybe you put something out when you were younger, right? And you'll put out a new one with a new cover or something, right? But there's, you know, like a lot of, you know, like Patrick Horvath, like he did an old comic on Zoop, and he like re-lettered it and did some editing, you know, and he like doctored it up and made it a new nice thing, right? So I like that. That's why you're doing this, that you're bringing this to crowdfunding, you're giving your backers a little bit something extra, you know, so it's very cool. What made you want to like do this project, you know, because Kickstarter is stressful. It's a big sack of rocks, Michael, you know, and like
it's a lot of work, man. It is a lot of work. But
you gotta talk to weirdos like me, you gotta do your own press, you gotta send all those emails.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. But I think it branches out of doing a lot of creator-owned stuff.
Okay.
And the more creator-owned work you do, the more you're interested in doing stuff that either doesn't fit in the market, or just the idea of sort of controlling all the different aspects of the book. And After Realm was coming out during a time when it's a fantasy book that the premise of it is after the apocalypse happens, you know, the sort of Ragnarok and the apocalypse happens everywhere. The Yuga cycles all kind of happen at the same time. These elves who had sequestered themselves in this sort of like pocket universe start sending out rangers to remap the world to see what happened to the old gods. And it was like a big deep dive into mythology and stuff for me and pop culture, because our mythology, our reality is like a fantasy's mythology, if that makes any sense. You know, like what was the Statue of Liberty? You know, all of our iconology that they have to sort of figure out the way that we had to figure out like what was their meanings behind their symbols and stuff. So that's the basic premise. We follow Una Lightfoot and her goat partner, who was a lot of fun. And I just have a lot of fun with mythology and digging into a lot of the pop culture stuff I grew up with, like Thunder the Barbarian. There's some nods to that in there, and video games like Joust. There's just a playground for things that I want to do. It was coming out at a time where there was I hate to use the word glut, but there was a glut of really good fantasy coming out in the market time. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to have to like shift how I'm publishing this. And, you know, crowdfunding was all right. I'm going to dive into it. And I tried doing each issue is like a double-sized issue. We did 5 issues. So we learned a lot about Kickstarter and stuff, and learned a lot more about communicating with my audience, which I don't really do very well. You know, I'm so focused on sort of doing
you're real hard to talk to. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, this I'm good at. This I'm good at. You know, okay. but doing it solo and messaging and like, you know, I'm not comfortable with that okay. Stuff is hard. And it takes a certain kind of talent too. Like, you know, there are some people that are so good at it, and I wish I could learn to do that. But you know, people can smell an inauthentic excitement. You know, I can't. So anyway, long story short, the Kickstarters went really well. It is now going to be a regular part of my future publishing plans. You know, I'd say 70% is publishing through the direct market, and the other 30 will be here on Kickstarters and other platforms. You know, just putting it out myself, building up my newsletter, really being my own. It's the best way to make it in this industry. I'm talking to my pal David Walker this afternoon about it, who's got some new books coming out, and it's like, yeah, the more you can depend on yourself, the better, you know, and then depend on your audience that you build, and that's a better relationship as well. And I'll still continue always doing like the main thing I'll be doing is in direct market, but also building up a direct relationship with your audience was something you couldn't really do 15 years ago. So yeah, just really excited about it.
Cool. I like that. Yeah, I really dug So you're doing this. I thought this was cool. When the campaign ends, all backers, you're gonna have like a special private YouTube channel or hangout thing,
Yeah.
and everybody gets to hang out and chat and talk and meet each other. Like I think that's so cool. Like one
Yeah,
of
it's
my
just an
buddies,
easy
Steve
way to say
Garino.
thank you, and you know, and again, sort of engaging the people who have invested in me, you know. So I'm going to do
Yes.
like two time periods, one early in the day for me and one late in the day for me, so like, you know, different time zones will have a little bit a better of a chance to pop in, and yeah, they can just ask me any questions, or I could blab away at them, and yeah, it'll be fun to see the after realm after party, and it seems like just a great way to thank people beyond, you know, delivering a product, right?
Yeah. And it kind of says something too, because it's like you got their money. It's over. You know, you're like, you can be like, see you later. Yeah, obviously. I'm not like see you
Sure,
later, like
sure.
you're
I
gonna
know
take
what
their
you mean,
money
though.
and
Yeah,
run, but like, I'm gonna go
yeah, yeah.
make the comic now. Bye. I'll talk to you in a
Oh,
month
the
with an
the
update.
comic's all done. I mean, and any Kickstarter I do, any crowdfunding thing I do, I'll always basically have the book finished before
Oh,
doing a
nice.
campaign. Yeah, that's important to me because that's without getting into the details of it. It's difficult to schedule. Time, work, and money are
Mm.
like three completely different things in this really weird dance, you know. So like yeah, it's always best to just do it first. But I'm also a crazy person where I'll start working on a project and put a good year of work into something before ever thinking about how is it going to be published. Like even right now, as I'm working on Blue Book and BPRD and one other thing I can't remember, I'm writing two other things that I'm planning for like a year or two from now.
Wow.
We have a graphic novel with Taki Soma, my wife. We have a book about Van Gogh that's in the can. It's basically finished. Now we're just kind of, you know, waiting for the next steps on that. So the idea is like to just always keep making stuff, you know, and the publication of it comes secondary. Like first, just figure out the project, be excited about something that you're passionate about, and make that story, and then hope somebody cares.
That's so cool. You are you're very good at like I've seen you like with other rock star creatives, like with other writers or like what is it? You and Mags and Galaxy of Madness. And I
Oh yeah,
don't so who's coloring this?
that's Taki.
It
Taki's
is
colored
okay.
all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Like holy shit. Like that book pops, dude. And it's
Oh, thank you.
like I said, just looking at your new stuff, right? And like going from William, which very has like that kind of Hellboy flatter colors and
For
kind of
sure.
that vibe. It has that vibe in it, right? And then and then looking at like Blue Book, which is I want to say simplistic, but it's not. It's simplistic and kind of color and texture,
Sure.
but there's also a lot of depth and layer and emotion there and body language there, right?
It's hard making things simple. Like a Blue Book, I spent a lot of time taking lines out, taking shapes
Oh,
out.
really?
Yeah, there's a lot of erasing. It's not that the lines are bad or anything, but like to keep things minimum is an effort because especially working digitally, it's so easy to add extra stuff,
Oh.
and it takes real restraint to to pull back, to keep things clean and simple.
That's like I was in an MFA program doing the poetry thing for a while, and that's one of the things like they were hammering into the poets and the write any writing really, but
Yeah.
poetry, especially like poetry in the line, and it's condense, right? And that's all
Oh,
you ever think
100%.
about.
Dude, I was going through that today. So I'm writing a pitch proposal for one of my next projects. And my rule is I keep, and this is something actually I learned from Taki when she wrote her autobiography book, Sleeping While Standing. She chose to tell her life story in 4-page chapters. And a lot of these things they could be graphic novels in themselves. She became a master at like cutting the fat off of the
Wow.
story and getting her message focused like a laser. And that changed the way I write. And one of those ways is when I do a proposal, it's only 2 pages. One page is the story, and that story includes like a log line at the top, so it's not quite even a full page. And then the second page is the character descriptions. And like poetry, and like you would really relate to this, like, and this is why taking poetry class would make a lot of sense for a writer, because to learn how to take a sentence or two and condense it down into 1 or 2 words, like how can 1 or 2 words say what a whole sentence would say by using a descriptive that paints a picture that is deeper than saying that somebody is an ambiguous smartass who likes this such and such, right? If you can find one or two words that just condenses all that, it's a lot of hard work, but it feels so rewarding to be able to say more with less. And to me, that's the whole magic of writing. In fact, Taki and I, when we'll go over a script or something, we figure out there's not enough space in this word balloon to say this thing, and it's important. So how do you condense those words down, to say what you were going to say in this larger section? And it's the best thing. We'll start high-fiving ourselves afterwards. It's the best thing. It's the best thing to figure out. And it's a lesson I wish more people would pick up on in comics, because sometimes it's hard when you're reading a book and you're like, oh, you'll get a sigh because you see the amount of dialogue in the next couple of pages. And it's not always bad, of course, but like learning that skill changed the way that I write. And it's the magic of writing. Like that's where the real magic comes in, because describing something for 2 or 3 sentences is easy, but it's magical to be able to infer what you're saying, because then you as the reader are participating in it. You're not just being spoon-fed what is being said or what is meant or what is being told. You're using your own mind to fill in the rest of it, and you meet halfway with the reader. It's the best feeling. It's the best thing.
Did learning to ration your words, did that kind of help you, like you said in Blue Book, ration your lines, or was that something you were kind of already good at?
It's very similar, and I got worse at it. So if you look at the earlier, if you look at earlier Powers stuff or my work like Hammer of the Gods, it's sort of like from the early 2000s, there's a lot less line work.
Yeah.
As I just got more confident and more tools, like especially the digital tools became, not to crap talk digital tools, but like they can make things too easy, like adding more and like you can like draw some rubble and then circle that rubble and then like cut and paste and then reverse it so it doesn't look like the same pattern, but now you've got more and more and more, and you can just take old backgrounds and put them into there, and you can use computer technology to create 3D models for yourself, and then you can like you can just add and that simplicity gets lost along the way. So I actually spend a lot of time simplifying my stuff. In fact, I'm working on another project coming up, and I'm literally picking up old adventures of the Batman animated stuff, the Batman Adventures. Nice. And just looking at like how they did buildings and like really concentrating on a simple building. Like I don't need to draw every brick in the building. I don't need to draw every window in the building, but I started to train myself to do that. I think that largely became because I had more time to draw. When I first was doing Powers, I was working as a security guard, and my son was born, so I had hardly any time to work. So all my lines and all the effort that I put into the page was all about the simplicity. Now, when you have more time to focus on that stuff, it just naturally became more complicated. So it's ironic that now I spend more time taking lines out. Not more time, but almost as much time taking lines out as I do putting them in. Even when I'm drawing simple, I'm like, that's too much.
That's cool. Well, I mean, I guess it's whatever pain you put yourself through, I keep doing it because the pages look great.
Thanks. But then also like William, it was more fun to be more lush, right?
Okay.
Like there was a lot of line work, and like William and Blue Book are on the opposite sides of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to draw a lot of. There's not a lot of fur in Blue Book, but yeah, you do get you get a little bit more into like the architecture, and you build that it feels like you spend a little bit more time building the scene, right, and put a little bit more detail in.
That's because I want to live in that world. I want to live in the world of William Newberry. Like,
yeah, you were born in the wrong time
period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad I'm in this time period because I know enough through studying about medieval time to know I would not want to live there.
You don't really want to be there?
Okay. It's a beautiful place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there. But yeah, I mean, that is a kind of world that I love and I want to live in. So yeah, there is this extra level of I just want to soak myself in it. I want to draw it, especially when it's like raining or snowing out. Like there's a mood there. There's no sunshine in William of Newberry. Yeah, that's just
you don't need sunshine. There's so much charm They're so, and
Ah,
it's so crazy, Michael, because like how much charm and like warmness there is like in like the cold dilapidated structures and the darkness and the demons and the hell and like the clergy is about to come after him and you know, and there's just like I'm again, maybe like I said earlier, maybe I'm just weird and I love raccoons so much, but it's like him and Winnie, like there's that this cool relationship and there's this, you know, I don't know that I trust Winnie necessarily being able to protect him, you know, and
sure.
I very much look forward to like that moment when maybe they have to work together to protect themselves because neither of them can do that them, you know, by or maybe there's also probably eventually going to be a reversal. William's going to step up, and William has stepped up. He's casting demons out. She's William's a boss, so like, but yeah, it's so cool, and it's so like. I just feel bad for like every other comic professional out there because
No, come
you're
on now.
doing everything by yourself.
This was the first book that I did everything from lettering, coloring, as well as the writing and stuff. But the thing that you're talking about, like the difference between William and Winnie and the darkness of the world and this cute comfortableness of it, that's the other half of my sort of theories that I've built over the years. So that first one is the simplicity through the writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like say a lot with little. Same thing with the art, say a lot with little. The other thing is contrast. So that's when you're talking about like there's spookiness in William Newberry, there's danger, there's demons, there's darkness, there's plague, there's dead bodies, and there's this cute, warm, fluffy, comforting thing at the same time. William and Winnie, they're completely different characters. One is a Christian monk, one is a pagan thief, you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
two of them coming together. Those contrasts are what makes, I think, what makes things interesting, you know. It's tough when you're watching a television show and everybody has the same voice, everybody's on the same page. Like even if your goal is the same, having completely opposite ways of going about it is so much better. Like if you're a Game of Thrones fans, like back in the day, you had Arya and the Hound, right? They
Mm-hmm.
had the same goals, but you know, completely different personalities, right? And they were so fun to watch because of that, and so much creativity comes out of contrast.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that really runs through Newberry is there's a lot of contrasting stuff, and that comes from some of the things that I grew up on. I grew up on this Secret of Nim, Watership
Yeah.
Down, you know, the animated Hobbit film, like, and it's full of all of that DNA is in William of Newberry, and I'm hoping to do more William of Newberry. But if I don't, there will be more of that kind of anthropomorphic world, you know, which started with Mice Templar. If you've liked William of Newberry, there's lots of this book called Mice Templar that I did with Brian Glass and Victor Santos that we did at Image for a number of years, and that was sort of the genesis of a lot of this genre stuff for me.
Very cool. You mentioned Dungeons and Dragons in your Kickstarter page. You mentioned it as the Saturday morning cartoon, but
Yeah,
I so like I'm 30. I turned 39 this year, and I am like, all I want to do is play D&D, Michael. Like I
yeah.
haven't got to play it yet. I bought the books. I like reading them. I recently stumbled across Dragonlance and I started
Oh,
the Dragonlance like
yeah.
Chronicles and I've and now and so many people have come out like cockroaches when you turn out the light, but like cockroaches that you want around, but they're like, are you reading Dragonlance? And it's like, where like I read that. It's like I'm like, how did I never hear about these books? But yeah, it's so like I'm learning about this world. I'm
That's awesome.
finding like a new I've always liked fantasy, you know, like I grew up like
Are
loving
you a
Conan.
video game player?
Oh yeah, yeah. When I have time,
So check out Baldur's Gate 3.
I
It's
want to
basically
so bad. Yeah,
it
it's
is basically Dungeons and Dragons rules.
yeah,
So you have that turn-based thing, which I never liked in video games, but this is exactly like playing Dungeons and Dragons, but it's digital and stuff. So
yeah.
um, that's a great way for you to start out. In fact,
Nice.
it uses a lot of the same D&D lore from Dungeons and Dragons. It's officially like Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Yeah, 'cause I remember like the old Baldur's Gate games and like Neverwinter Nights and stuff. Like when you
Mhm.
could play computer games on a computer that didn't cost
Yeah,
thousands of dollars, right? You could just play if you just like
yeah,
anybody that had a computer could play a game. You know, like
yeah.
so yeah, I remember that stuff. But yeah, it's just so it's so weird because I remember I was always kind of a dork, right? But in high school, like I was in a band, I played bass, and so like I was kind of cool for a little bit or
Well, you were
whatever.
definitely cool.
But there was so much. I was like, people were playing it, but I was like, And then now, like, you go to Target and Walmart, and there's like huge racks of like all this dungeon. There's all these books and cookbooks and all this stuff, right? And it's like, and my sister is playing with my brother-in-law and my cut, like they're all playing, and I'm like, and it's like, wow, now I'm like, now I want to play, and now you like can't find people to play, or you're like, now I'm not cool enough to play D&D. What the hell happened? But yeah, it's so wild, and yes, it's so fantasy. You forget sometimes that like you maybe you something grows stale, or you get, like you said, when some of these books were coming out, there was so much of it, like kind of like how horror is now, right? Everybody is, and I
Sure.
love horror, but like we're full, and we're always full, and it's like there's always another plate coming.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, I just need to breathe for a second. Yeah, like I just want to go home, put my comfy pants on because I'm full. But it's
Yeah.
and I guess I'm having that moment now where I just like I'm coming back to fantasy after a
Mm,
short time. So yeah, like again, like the raccoons, the art, the story, the charm, the religious critiques and quirks that you've thrown in, the distrusts of Christianity. I get, they're shady.
sure.
I know I don't care if they're rabbits or real people,
That,
they're
that
shady.
was really fun to do too, because like any religion, like if I'm going to have any of that stuff in the story, I want to be respectful, and the fact is, it's written from the point of view of somebody who believed in that world at that time. William of Newbury is a real person. Like, so I don't
Oh,
know if
okay.
you caught this up. Like, he was the his real name was William Newburgh, but there are variations of his name. Newberry just sounded cuter, so I used Newberry, right? But William Newburgh was England's first historian, and he was recording history during this time period called the Anarchy, where there was Queen Matilda. Actually, all of House of Dragon is based on this secession thing, where there was going to be the first queen, and then things
Okay.
fell apart. But he was a real historian writing about these actual things. And in the middle of all these very factual, provable histories, he was also writing about the dead coming back to life, and ghost stories and demonic things, because as a Christian monk, this was just a fact of his life. So that was fascinating, because as I was doing research on a short story I did called The Green Children, was where these are one of the stories that he recorded. In fact, all of the stories in William of Newbury are stories directly from William of Newburgh, his recordings. These are all stories that he wrote, and then I adapted them
Oh, wow.
for the story. So to him, this was all real, right? And then we also have Winnie, who just was, you know, not not a believer, right? So to see them sort of be able to argue about things, and it really comes to a head in the fourth issue in a way that I was super proud of. Uh, yeah, so it was a lot of fun to do. Also being careful to not disrespect anybody, and just to make that the like I love those stories where that's the world point of view. Like you like horror, right? And
Mhm.
the film The Witch, like the
Yeah.
rules of that universe were this puritanical thing, and I love that they just stuck to that, and you followed through on that story. That was a big influence on this as well.
It's super cool. You forget like a world before smartphones, and like the stories that, because so many stories could be ruined with a cell phone with Wi-Fi or 4 bars, right? And
They still are. I've run into a thing, and not everybody's going to have this reaction, but I notice when I'm reading a comic, and I don't know why it's a comic. Like in film and television, not so much. A little bit. It it pulls me out. But especially in the comic, if somebody's got like a cell phone, I don't know what it is, but now I think because I'm trying to escape that world, because
yeah.
my phone is attached to my hand. Seeing it in a story, and then it's not a bad thing, and I'm not saying don't do it, but there's definitely, I don't know, it's something that like pings in the back of your head that reminds you of reality too much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know what the point
Interesting.
was. Sorry.
No, that was probably a better point than I was trying to make. I don't, I, Michael, this is one of those cool interviews where like, I've been very, very lucky in the years I've been doing this, and I've gotten to talk to some really amazing people. And I've never had like a bad interview, right? But you never really know how, you never know how things are going to go necessarily.
Same here, and you've been a great interviewer.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
this has been great because I definitely had some where I'm like, what did I do?
You're like, is it, how long is this show?
Why didn't I listen to one of these person's things before?
You got, if I was ever like a big, I would have like a like the bad date escape plan, you know, like I'd be like tell the wife to like scream from the kitchen or yell fire or something, you know, like I go, oh, my daughter's calling me, I gotta go, I don't something, you know, I don't just like the basement flooded. You gotta have an escape plan. But no, you have like a lot of like really great like I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of really great insights, which again, I think that's why these stories, that whether you're illustrating it, inking it, or doing the whole kit and caboodle, whole shebang, right? It's that it sticks out, and it's powerful, and I like, I love some of the stuff you said about like finding like power and simplicity, and you have like a very impressive career, and you have a name that like a lot of people recognize, right? And you also
No,
like
thank you.
you're very like chill. You're like you're humble. You can tell you're still, you can tell you're like a huge nerd that still loves this, right? And
I absolutely love it. This is all I want to
that's
do.
exciting.
Yeah.
It's good. You know, I
Thank you, man.
it's because it's, you know, indie comics is a weird world right now, and so is
Mhm.
even like the Kickstarters are rough terrain, depending on
Everything,
who
yeah.
you are right now, right? And so like,
Everything keeps changing and
yeah,
evolving. I think that's one of the reasons why myself, and even friends who aren't doing necessarily Kickstarters, but just going way more into creator own stuff, is just the sense that you can control something in a field where there's almost no control over anything anymore.
yeah,
The social media was such a great, powerful tool for us for a long time, and then like after all the algorithms just became about platforming and money and stuff, and uh, it's so all those models are gone too. So it's like, how do you promote anything? It's a riddle that
yeah.
none of us can figure out.
Facebook took down a post from me today sharing a global comics link, for my buddy put his first arc up for free on Global Comics, and I was
Okay.
like, check this out, and Facebook
Yeah.
was like, you're trying to trick people into clicking this link by giving them free comics. No, it's like
Oh my
they're,
God. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's me. Yeah, and I do promotion and stuff too. I do like comics for the day job. I work at a production
Mm.
studio and stuff. So like, you know, but yeah, it's crazy, and I do a lot of promotion too. But yeah, the indie creators and you all like, I'm, you know, it's crazy. The big time artists getting on Instagram and like posting a new drawing or a new sketch or a new page, just like nobody sees it, right? Like, what is
Yeah, the algorithm's just
it's
not
crazy.
there.
It's so
Yeah.
crazy. Like
Well,
it's like,
that's why I appreciate stuff like this coming on here and be able to talk about things, because um I'll be reaching a different audience. And as I said, like, I'm not good at doing this on my own, so and you've been a great soundboard to like anything that sounded good that I said here, I can't do on my own. Like I need a human being to speak to about it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come out here and talking, and just reach other audiences and stuff, because all I want to do is make comics. All I want to be able to do is to make sure that people can find them.
yeah, that's another big part
Yeah.
too, right? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we want you. I'm saying we. I know it's just me, but there people do listen to the show and follow me, and like, and you know, usually when I get stoked about a comic, people pay attention. So yeah, I know I'm not the only one excited about what you're doing. I know Cole, I hope you listen to this. I know my buddy Cole said Blue Book wasn't his cup of tea, but he's wrong. And I know me and a whole lot of other people are enjoying that. And I'm really glad like Dark Horse was able to, because Substack was a cool deal and a lot of people were interested in it, but
Yeah.
not everybody could afford to like support every, you know, like that
Sure.
ended
Sure.
up being
Sure.
like a crazy pull list for some people if you were
Yeah.
following like James and Chip and Hickman
Yeah.
and everybody, right? So I thought it was real cool that Dark Horse is like they do with Comixology. Dark Horse is very cool about reprinting this stuff, getting it out. Everybody loves it. I'm stoked that you guys are still doing it, and I'm just, man, I'm glad that you just love making comics, Michael, because like
Oh, thanks, man.
the world needs more of them. It's tough to, I don't know if you like flipped on the television after. It's rough times out there,
What?
sir. So we Like I need more raccoon distractions that
My
can
favorite
pray
thing
the
right now
hell
is
away from
it's
me, right? Like
my favorite thing is I found this GIF or just a meme. I don't know who made it, but like it's a picture of like the city on fire, and it says, you know, the rest of the world, and underneath it, it's like Will Ferrell going, "Anybody want comics?"
yeah.
And I just said, "This is me." I was like, yeah, that's basically that's where we live right now.
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. Have you guys checked out my Kickstarter? You got to
Yeah,
though. You got and this is a very cool Kickstarter. And you know, this isn't the typical Kickstarter campaign, right? Collected
sure.
edition. You're getting a big mass of comics to read. And you only
Yeah,
got 2 weeks
yeah.
left. So like I would
Yeah,
get out
we got
there.
beautiful slipcover with art by Dan Brereton. He's
Mm.
one of my favorite artists and a good friend of mine. There's a huge couple big PDFs in there, especially like if the shipping is too much because this is a big book.
Mm.
Besides a PDF for the comic, there's like a 500-page art PDF where I just put a bunch of stuff in there, a lot that will never ever see print because like all I have is a JPEG file, so it's not big enough to print.
Oh,
So like super rare stuff. It's 500 pages.
wow.
Um, and there's a couple other pieces in there too. So yeah, there's something for everybody.
And
Hopefully,
I saw you were selling some original art. Some of that already got snagged.
yeah,
I saw like there was some, I know there was some blue book art there, some other cool stuff. So like I tell people all the time that people should be, whether or not you back the book or not, like you should pay attention to who's on Kickstarter and who's doing Kickstarter, because if you do collect art and sketch it, it's some of the best prices and deals you can get on original
sure.
art is on Kickstarter, as opposed to like buying from like a dealer or at a
Hmm.
con, or you know, like you just a lot of times you can get a nice little sketch for good
Yeah,
prices. So check that out
absolutely.
too, folks.
Thanks so
It's
much.
a cool campaign. Like I'm really, and I was joking to because my buddy was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you got Michael," and I was like, "He's got a Kickstarter going." I tricked him. I was like,
You know, I'll
these
tell you what,
big guys go over to Kickstarter, and you're like, "Oh, you want to come talk about it?" Oh yeah, so
I'll be happy to come back on your show, talk about comics anytime, Kickstarter or not, man.
awesome, cool. So when I start my UFO alien show, no,
Oh,
I
hundred
kind of
percent,
would do that, but
100%.
I was when I was a kid. So my dad let me watch the Alien movie, the original Alien, when I was way too young, and I had like screaming nightmares. I remember my
Yep.
mom being so mad at my dad, screaming, "I can't believe you let him watch that! What the fuck?" I was like bad fighting.
Oh my god.
And it terrified me, right? And
Yeah.
I still remember some of those nightmares, or like
You
my
know what freaked me out was the chest burster scene. Um, the thing that freaked me out was that it wasn't blood. I had seen that before in other films of some kind. That
yeah.
white foam, and I understand that he was an android and stuff. And like I was like, oh, I was like scared and vomiting. You know, it was just the most horrifying thing that I've seen.
Yeah, that white goose stuff was gnarly.
Oh my god, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, ever since then, for a long time as a kid, I thought I was gonna get abducted, and not in a, like I didn't want to.
Sure.
I used to watch sightings all the time, and like
Oh,
I was
I
like,
wanted to. I used to sneak out of the house and go to like a baseball field in the
dude, like
middle of the
wait
night,
for it.
just like, come on, what's going on? Come on, I've seen it in the movies.
Oh man, see, I was the
Take me.
opposite. I was like in bed pulling the covers up, and when like a car drove by and the headlights like went through the
Yeah,
blinds, I
yeah.
was like, there.
That was a good show too. Sightings. That was on right after X Files.
Yeah.
That was a really good show.
It was a cool show. I missed that stuff. Like I've definitely missed the X Files, but yeah, there's not.
Yeah.
I know there's like the ancient aliens and stuff, but yeah, there's not. Sightings was like scary, you know. Sightings
Yeah.
was like you watch sightings and you're like after that half hour, you're like, am I safe? I don't know if I'm safe or not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like what's
Well, they did a smart thing too. Like they when they told a story, and if it was outlandish, they didn't add to it. They didn't try to make it bigger than what it was or crazier than what it was.
yeah.
So like that sort of matter of factness about it. And what's really interesting is again like history repeating and stuff. I remember watching an episode where there's a very clear image of a quote UFO that kind of looked like a garbage can just spinning in the air. And you know, tons all these years later, like I watched it again. I was like, oh, that's just an early drone. Like that's all. It's not a UFO. There's like this was somebody caught. I don't remember the context of it, which is always important. The context of
Mhm.
where it was and stuff. But like clearly, it was just an early drone that was flying in the air. that somebody filmed out of context. But at the time you're watching, you're like, you don't know what it is. It was just a super clear, weird spinning object and stuff. But now it's like, oh, that's what that was, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to kind of watch that stuff again. And another example of history repeating itself. So technology that we didn't know then, that's pretty mundane now. Let's jump 10 years from now, and like all those Tic Tac sightings and stuff like oh yeah, that was a hard light machine that was invented by blah 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 or whatever,
The hard light talk has me excited because that just means we're like one step closer to Green Lantern Corps. I'm just like, that's all I want. I'm just like, sorry.
You're right. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like once you start down that hard light road, start talking like railguns, and then sure. I'm like Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid, espionage, super spy stuff, like everything, right?
Yeah.
I got a weird brain where I try to latch on to stuff from my youth. I think that's why I still read comic books. It makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I've always been an escapist, just mentally trying to escape where I'm at and stuff. And comics is a great place to go.
It is. It's a super great place to go. And more specifically, Michael Oeming's comics are an even great place to go. Michael, I know I've kept you for a while. I know you probably got stuff to do, comics to draw, Kickstarter updates to write, all that fun stuff. Real quick, I think we covered everything. We got the Kickstarter. We got Galaxy of Madness. You and Mag's got that coming from Mad Cave, After Realms Live. We got William Newberry blowing minds and winning hearts over a dark horse coming from the direct market. No. And then I guess we could jump forward. Blue Book Volume 2 I think drops October is when the trade drops.
Oh, awesome. I don't pay attention to release dates enough, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Like websites or mailing lists, or I don't know, you want to drop your social security number for the fans?
You can find most. I'm on most platforms at Oeming. There's a newsletter that you can find out there, or ask me directly in any. I'll put a link down here. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Very cool. Well, yeah, dude, I had a blast talking to you. I've loved your art for a really long time.
Thank you, man.
And I could see how, as a creator at the time, you guys were probably like, why the hell is this coming out on PlayStation Network? But I'm really glad it did.
I'm glad it did.
I mean, I knew Brian, like I'd read like some of Brian's stuff, but yeah, like that was my diving into that and your art, and like, then like I like you, and then like Phil Hester and you guys, and then like like Magnolia, you guys have this like vibe, but all like a similar vibe, but you all have your own voice, right? And sure. I really like that style, like hard lines,
heavy contrast,
simpler times, and heavy contrast. Yeah, that's a good t-shirt. Hard lines, simpler times, heavy contrast.
I like it.
It's a good recipe. It's a good recipe. And so I just hope you keep making awesome books so I can read them.
Absolutely. I'm gonna do my best, man.
Hell yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. You know I love you. Please check out the Kickstarter, follow Mike, sign up for his mailing list, check out the comics, and please go buy this little raccoon. Let him steal your heart. Like if the numbers are too good, then Michael can't ignore it. He's got to draw more of it. That's them's the rules. So go check it out. Take care of yourselves. Treat each other nice. You know how we do it. Love more, hate less, read comics. I'll be back with more amazing comics to talk about, more amazing guests to chat up. Appreciate y'all. Michael, appreciate you. This was so fun.
Thank you, Blake.